A lot of you have asked, why did we switch this from the traditional Wednesday night to a Tuesday night? I can't tell you how many people came up and asked me about that, and I'll tell you. Tom was so afraid that it would be this low turnout like it is tonight, and he wanted to blame it on the night that we selected. So Tom, you got your wish. How many people speak of the Italian? Raise your hand. One? No, not Sicilian, Italian. Hey. Cacciatore in Italian means the hunter. And tonight, the hunter will be hunted. We are going to serve Tom up, Tom Allegria, Tom Crudo, Tom a piacere, and Tom al forno. Any way you think about it, Tom is going to burn tonight. Now, usually it's very difficult to get even 2 or 3 people who are willing to risk coming up and insulting, I'm not going to say the honoree because he's not, but the person who's going to get roasted. They think, the person has political power, he's got inside connections, he's got the charisma. And when I told them, no, it's Tom Cacciatore they're going to roast, they said, yes! So there are going to be 8 people roasting Tom. But with this, if anybody wants to get up now, rather than listen to 8 people insult Tom, you can get up and leave now, but you got 2 seconds to do it. You're here for the evening. Tonight, I told Tom you can't have 8 roasters. And Tom said, why not? He said, Tom, we're going to go into the wee hours of the morning. And Tom says, but what does it matter? I'm being honored tonight. I said, Tom, let me cut to the chase. Some people, unlike you, actually have to get up in the morning and go to work. But Tom, being as persistent as he is, insisted 8 roasters, but the roasters have assured me that they will keep their remarks biting, funny, and short. So, I have one thing to ask. Are you ready to rumble? The first roaster, and I apologize that we're doing this while we eat, because some of you may get a little sick while you're eating, if you hear this, is Judge Phil Argento. Judge Argento is a past president of this association. He has the distinction, not the honor, but the distinction of knowing Tom the longest. Phil and Tom went to kindergarten together when they were 5 years old. And I know, despite appearances to the contrary, Tom was actually a clever little boy. He knew that with his looks and his brains, Tom was going... What are you, you're rushing up the microphone, Tom? He knew that he was going nowhere on his own, and it was time to grab the coattails of somebody who would make it. And after all these years, Tom is still holding tight to the coattails of Bill Argento. So the only thing I would say is, Tom, he's retired now. It's time to let go. Judge Argento.
Devoted husband, father, and friend. Oh, geez, this is the eulogy time. I hope to do it later, but not soon. Here's Tom's idea of this roast. I hope you are thinking of many kind things to say.
That's in Pennsylvania.
About all the good deeds I have done in the past, my superior intellect and good conduct and fishing prowess. And do not forget my good looks. Also, keep it short. Translation, make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. All right. I have known Tom since kindergarten. That's 68 years ago. Some call it a warm and lasting relationships. The wise call it purgatory. Because Tommy and I are like Frank and Dean, friends in fun, friends in luck, sometimes rat pack, run amok. Now, cacciatore, as was said, means hunter in Italian. And so Tommy has hunted for fried chicken, big verdicts, sweet settlements, classy cars, and fish. Once we went fishing off Redondo, caught some red snapper. All things considered, it cost $300 a pound. Thanks, Tommy, you got another great getaway idea? You get away. Tom's roots are in Sicily near Caltanissetta. When you think Sicilian, you probably think of somebody like me, swarthy, dark hair, olive oil eyes. But Tommy's red hair, blue eyes, and light white skin also mark him as a true Sicilian. I used to think this is because of Roger Grace's Norwegians invaded Sicily, but research shows that this is true. Roger the First was of the Norman Count of Sicily from 1071 to 1101, and that I'm quoting here, the Normans led by Roger the First transported the red-haired gene to Sicily. So Roger, we know you got Grace, but find out if you got any Norms, because it'd be full of glee if you and Tom are related genetically. Maybe not like the brothers Karamazov, but like the cousins Curmudgeon, left and right. Now, centuries after Roger ruled Sicily, Tom's grandfather hunted for a better life, and eventually the Cacciatore settled in Southern California, which looked like Sicily with jobs. You probably noticed I'm referring to Tom a lot as Tommy, and that's because there were 3 Thomases in our classroom for 9 years, and Thomas Cacciatore received the diminutive Tommy because, you'll probably find this hard to believe, he was diminutive. He stayed short until late high school when he grew to a lean and lanky, almost 6 feet. More recently, he's grown laterally. In our 20s, he had a 32-inch waist. Now 20 and 32 add up to 52, and he's closer to that now. But I don't chastise him because I'm a beneficiary of his good deed hand-me-downs. So say what you want about his many defects. This man has taste in clothing. Just look at this handsome Brooks Brothers suit. It used to fit Tommy because it was Tommy's. You think my public employee's salary with 4 kids, I could afford a suit like this? No way. But thanks to Tommy's pasta-packing ways, I stand before you in sartorial splendor. Thank you, Tommy. Now, it's not just in clothes. Tommy has always had savoir-faire, timing, and tact. That's why on a 6th grade hayride, I waited until Tommy tried to hold Regina's hand. Only then did I dare try to hold Jackie's hand. After the ride, in the words of James Brown, we felt good, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, as only young boys could, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Years later, when Tommy was in law school, we spent many nights at Tom Bergen's bar on Fairfax Avenue, drinking Irish coffees. Astrological signs were the opening lines. What's your sign, I asked. Lizard, she said. What do you do? Brain surgeon. This gal was pretty and funny, but she liked Tommy better. Almost all the girls we met at Bergen's did. So let me say this about Tommy's good looks. He really had them, but they left him late in the last century. Oh yeah, justice for me, lizard brain surgeon rejectee. About Tommy's sense of humor. If you remember Beanie and Cecil from the 1950s, you'll understand that Tommy not only is funny ha-ha, but also funny peculiar. And I'm still bound by the Code of Judicial Ethics, so I can't comment further on his sense of humor. About Tommy's superior intellectual. Truth is, from kindergarten through law school, Tommy was academically too busy socializing, A+ in that. But he bloomed brain-wise and big time when he started trying cases. And it was not long until he expanded tort liability in Bigby versus Pacific Tell and Tell, a California Supreme Court case that was featured with other big plaintiffs' cases on 60 Minutes. Tommy's success was predicted. When Tom was in law school, our dear friend, the late, great Michelangelo DeCarlo, maven of the Middle Ages, gave us a tarot card reading. Tommy's question was, will I make a lot of money? Yes, it's in the cards, Mike said. I said, will I get this job I want in Washington, D.C.? Answer, yes, but you'll have to wait a while. A few years later, after my Washington job ended, Jane and I spent days driving around San Marino hunting for a house that Tom and Lynn could buy with Tom's first big contingency fee. Michelangelo, whose father was a carpenter, had nailed it. Speaking of driving, if you ever want to go for a drive with Tom, let Tom drive. He likes to drive. He's a safe, efficient driver, but he's a compulsive backseat driver no matter where he sits. So if you drive, put Tommy in the trunk. Last week, Tom asked me if he should do his Elvis impression tonight. I told him no, because I'm going to do his Elvis impression tonight. But I didn't tell him I was going to do it after my Dean Martin impression. So, when the cars make you drool, just like pasta fazool, cacciatore. When you dance down the street with a settlement suite, cacciatore. When you walk in a stream, see the fish of your dream, signore. Scusa me, but you see, here in New Sicily, that's amore for cacciatore. So, Tommy, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And I said, have you ever seen Tom eat? If you want to look at that. The next roaster is Galen Creep. Galen was Tom's classmate at Loyola Law School. Now I know when you look at Tom, you think it would be the class of 51, but in actuality, it was the class of 71. Tom knew, just like in kindergarten when he latched on to the judge, that Galen was going somewhere, and he tried very, very hard to be his BFF even before BFF was invented. Tom was right. Now, unlike Tom, Galen did go somewhere. Galen is a state bar certified estate planner. 30 years ago, Tom asked Galen if he would do Tom's estate planning for free. And Galen, being smarter than Tom, said, sure, I'll do that. It's been 30 years and Galen is still waiting for Tom to amass an estate. But Tom being Tom, just last week he did a Go Fund My Estate thing, so if you would please help him. Galen Creek.
Well, first I want to say that Tom's a great guy. He's real friendly. He must be because he's got a non-Italian up here at the Italian American Lawyers Association. As mentioned, I met Tom in law school. He asked me to pick him up every day before class at his free parking spot, which was half a mile from campus. I won't say it was an imposition, but my bicycle was never the same. Now, yeah, he did find the only free parking spot in downtown LA. And I don't want to say that he's frugal, but some things never change. He started out with nothing, and he still has most of it left. I'd never say he's cheap. But last year when Lynn got a new pair of penny loafers, he gave her 2 Canadian pennies. And it wasn't all that long ago he told his kids that Santa was killed in a mid-air collision, so he would have Christmas presents. When you go to a party at his house, it's not only bring your own booze, you have to bring your own ice too. And the suits that were mentioned, they're all custom made. They all have rubber pockets for the soup he wants to take home from the restaurant. But seriously, he's not really cheap. He's just saving for a rainy century. But he can be surprisingly generous and modest. When he donates to charity, which he does a lot of, he likes to remain anonymous. That's why he never signs his name on the check. Early on, before law school, I'm told that there was a time when, in his wanting to help people, which I call altruism. In his altruism, he was going to become a pharmacist. That's what he wanted to do with his life. Fortunately for all of us, he couldn't get the prescription bottles and the typewriter. You have to be old enough, I guess. Okay, now it's true that Tom was a little rowdy back in law school. You've heard about the Tom Bergen episodes. And he did sow some wild oats. Of course, now his wild oats are shredded wheat. Metamucil, yeah. I do remember our days in school. That was when Tom stole the exams, and he still failed most of them. And I'd never say Tom was a midnight toker. But it's hard to draw any other conclusion when his best study buddy was busted for intent to sell, possession with intent to sell. And there was the time he tried snorting coke. But the ice cubes got stuck in his nose. But Tom does have a natural side. He's not the most refined guy in the world. He's from Sicily, after all. I was at his house last week and I asked him, "Where's the bathroom?" And he said, "Oh, just pick a corner." And don't forget, he's a real animal lover. At least he was until the court order. Now, he may not look like a lot, or look like much, but he shows up many of the great thinkers of our age. Well, maybe I'm exaggerating a bit about that, but he has disproved Darwin's theory of evolution. And some things never change. We all know about Tom's eating and how partial he is to Italian food. After all, he's Sicilian. I think his blood type is ragu. Not long ago, I suggested we have lunch at Taco Bell, and he said, "What's that, a Mexican phone company?" Really, when they made Tom, they broke the mold. And then just to play it safe, they found the guy who made the mold and shot him.
Okay, well, you're thinking about it. Roger Grace, His Eminence. Now, people look at Tom and they look at Roger and they don't realize how much they have in common. When they were growing up, Roger in Los Angeles served as the president of the Young Republicans. At the same time, Tom was in Illinois serving as the water boy for the Chicago 7. Roger went on to be the publisher. Oh my God, Tom fell down.
Oh my God.
Roger went on to be the publisher of the conservative Metropolitan News. Tom went on to become the dietitian for the Sudanese Liberation Army. Rumor has it that Roger recently turned down a cabinet post in the Trump administration, while Tom accepted a job as a paid heckler at Trump rallies. You see, they do have more in common than one would think. Roger?
Thank you, Jack. This is a fantastic turnout. About 200 people. Do you realize that this is opposite a major LACWA event? And certainly this turnout really is a great tribute to the need for fingerprinting. When Tom asked me to say a few words about him, he said, "I know you can be funny." Well, he has an impression because every time I express a political view, he laughs. Tom keeps telling me that he's not really as far to the left as I think he is. Tom, yes you are. Now, he does put his money where his mouth is. I looked it up on Westlaw, and this is true. Between 2000 and the latest tallies, he has made $60,009 in political contributions. Tom, who got the $9? He doesn't. Well, I know who didn't get any of the money. He did not forward the email that's been making the rounds that asks who the first liberal Democrat was. And the answer is Christopher Columbus. He left not knowing where he was going, got there not knowing where he was, left not knowing where he'd been, and did it all on borrowed money. Now, Phil Argento beat me to it in reciting an email that Tom sent to us recently. And I'm going to repeat it because all the rest of the remarks are tied to it. You had to do that, didn't you, Phil? He said, and I hope you are thinking of many kind things to say about all the good deeds I have done in the past, my superior intellect and good conduct and fishing prowess, and not to be forgotten, my good looks. Typical Cacciatore. Well, I don't know about the fishing prowess, but Phil has just sworn testimony to that. As to his good conduct, his probation officer assures me that he's been behaving himself, either that or he's being more careful than he used to be. As to good looks, now, Lynn says she never tires of gazing at his movie star-like countenance. Movie stars like Lou Costello and Lassie. Superior intellect. Well, Tom told me to suck it to him, and in obedience, well, here's a book, a giant book of insults. So, stealing from that, it says he couldn't count up to 20 without taking his shoes off. He's a man of rare intelligence. It's rare that he shows any. He was in a fight once with Jack Denove, and he was knocked conscious. Tom is the same age as David DiGiulio and I am, and it's said that wisdom often comes with age, but with him, age came alone. Last week, voters were urged to vote bright and early. Well, he voted early. Once he saw a woman fall down, but he didn't pick her up. It's because his mother had warned him not to have anything to do with fallen women. You know that none of these insults applies to Tom. Oh, now there is one in this book that would be great use at a roast for another past IALA president. He doesn't read books, look at TV, or listen to the radio. They take his mind off himself. You know what I'm talking about. Actually, as to superior intellect, we can all attest to that. Through the years, I knew Tom as affable, witty, fun to be around, not namby-pamby, and someone you could trust. But I really didn't appreciate his brilliance until maybe you all saw it. He came up with a position paper in opposition to this nonsense of doing away with Columbus Day. And it was reasoned, researched, it was expertly crafted, and it was truly impressive. At Nostalgia Night that we had a few months ago with the senior lawyers of Los Angeles County Bar Association, Tom was on the IALA's panel, the Paisans. On the other side, the senior lawyers, the dinosaurs. The topic was politics. Now this is something Tom does know something about. He was the star of the show. Every single question about politics, the history of politics, Tom hit the buzzer. He was the first one, and he got everything right. On a personal note, Tom did not know my mother. I don't think he ever met her. But he's loyal to friends. And he came from Pasadena to Westwood to be at her funeral. And Tom, I'll never forget that.
Tom's daughter is next up, and she's going to set the record straight. Roger said, looking out here, there were like 200 people honoring Tom. Roger, did you do the count for the inauguration for Trump? Alexandra Cacciatore is Tom's daughter. Thank God she got the looks and the brains from Lynn, her mother. So I asked, I asked questions, because that's the kind of guy I am. So I asked Lynn, I said, what should I know about Alexandra? She told me that when Alexandra was growing up, she would love to go to Tom's office and watch him in the office. She would sit there and listen to what he said, watch what he did. When she was a little older, she actually, don't laugh, Lynn, these are your remembrances that you told me, that Alexandra would go to court when Tom was in trial and sit there and watch and listen. And like she did in the office, she kept a journal and she wrote down meticulously everything Tom said and did. Alexandra now works as a deputy city attorney. So I know Mike Fuhrer, and I asked Mike, I said, what can you tell me about Alexandra? And he said, it is incredible. Whenever Alexandra is in doubt as to what to do, she opens up this journal and flips it to find out what her dad, Tom, did in that exact situation. And she would do the exact opposite. And Tom said, she's never lost a case. Alexandra, you want to start?
Just to correct the record, I did go to my father's office a lot growing up, but it was mainly to steal office supplies, which has prepared me for my job in government. So welcome to Tom Cacciatore's Roast, everybody! Yeah! I have to say there's no member of the Italian American Lawyers Association more appropriate to be roasted. Given Dad's weight and pale, white, pinkish complexion, he's the member who most resembles a roast. So let's make sure the waiters don't clear him away at the end of the night, huh? Did you guys think I was going to be nice because I was his daughter? I hope you're all enjoying the Tom Cacciatore masks that I made. I figured that Dad is such a narcissist that he would like nothing more than looking out into an audience composed entirely of Tom Cacciatores. So when he gets up here to keep that in mind. But these masks are an illustration of my larger theme, that maybe, just maybe, there's a little Tom Cacciatore in all of us. Don't worry, the salad dressing was safe. I mean that in the sense that when talking about one of his famous id-driven characters, Larry David spoke about how, quote, there's a little George Costanza in all of us. And so it is with Tom Cacciatore. Let me explain. Tom Cacciatore says exactly what he is thinking, whether you want to hear it or not. An example from growing up, and I have many. It may shock you, male members of the audience, to know that women are not born knowing how to put on makeup. No, it takes like a decade to get this right. So I started wearing makeup when I was 15, and my favorite colors were purple and bright blue. And I will admit that maybe covering my eyelid with metallic purple makeup was not the best look. But Dad always had a word of encouragement for me when I would come downstairs to leave the house, with comments such as, I see we're going out to scare the neighborhood children this evening. Or, another classic, oh, is this the new fashion for Guadalajaran streetwalkers? Very nice. These are true. Or, you really shouldn't go out looking like that. People will think your mom and I gave you a black eye. Funnily enough, growing up with Tom Cacciatore saying things like that actually gave me ironclad self-confidence, because honestly, at some point, I had pretty much heard it all. Anyone who knows me knows that I have a ridiculous amount of self-confidence that is predicated on absolutely nothing, other than backhanded compliments that I have received throughout my life from Tom Cacciatore, like, your hair looks so nice today. Usually it makes you look like a slut, but today is really good. By the way, Dad has been lecturing me about how to wear my hair for as long as I can remember, despite the fact that he hasn't had hair for 30 years. He is a man of many opinions, my father. So, for example, if you are making a sandwich, he will stand over you and quiz you about why you're not using mustard when the mustard is there. Don't you know that? And are you a communist? A few years ago, my dad watched my second jury trial, where he was feeding me lines from the back, sua sponte. I didn't ask him for help. But after I finished my closing, he was very excited and told me, wow, I really didn't think you would be that good. But you were. And that's a real gem in the world of Tom Cacciatore compliments. By the way, there's a saying now in feminist circles which goes something like, act as if you have the confidence of a mediocre white man. So I have the confidence of a female Tom Cacciatore, so check. The problem is that as I've gotten older, I have finally noticed, somewhat to my horror, that I am becoming Tom Cacciatore. For example, I never wanted to be a lawyer, and yet somehow here I am, a trial lawyer. But I have noticed it in the way that I have a very interesting manner of giving compliments or trying to say nice things. And one example that comes to mind is that I have an office mate who is a little bit older than me and has 2 children. And she was complaining about how her 4-year-old had a meltdown in the supermarket, and she said something along the lines of, oh, you know, I'm just so worried that everyone is judging me because my child is on the floor screaming and crying. And And I was trying to make her feel better, and I said, oh, no, 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 every time I see that, I don't, judge the parent, I just think the kid is somewhere on the spectrum and it's God's fault. That didn't seem to cheer her up. Or I found myself arguing a motion where my opponent said something along the lines of blah, 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 blah. And Your Honor, I think that's a fair reading of the statute. And I began my response argument with, well, Your Honor, that is a fair reading of the statute if you never learned how to read. That's in a record somewhere. And also, it shows up in places like when I wrote my parents' 35th anniversary card, I wrote something along the lines of, happy anniversary, I'm glad you two stayed together because it would be very frustrating and difficult for me to deal with you separately. By the way, you would think that given what a difficult, full of bravado man my father is, that he might have chosen a wife and life partner who would never know that he was completely making things up or totally full of shit. But he didn't. He chose my mom, Lynn, who is a very equal partner and in many ways a much more talented attorney, which shows that at least he has some judgment. Tom Cacciatore, like George Costanza, makes shit up all the time. After college, I moved back to my parents' house, and one day I come upstairs, I came home from work and I come upstairs, and as it turns out, someone had left open the window, and the window didn't have a screen. If you ever ask Tom Cacciatore who leaves the window open, it's never him, ever, and yet windows are left open, even though he's the only person who's been home. So I walk upstairs to see my dad wearing his suit, his tie thrown over his shoulder, and he's holding a broom, violently sweeping at the ceilings in the hallway of the upstairs of our home. And I think that there's been some sort of exorcism that's happened. And I asked him, Dad, what are you doing? And he says, birds. Birds, he screams. There could be birds in the house. And so I'm alarmed, and I looked in all the bedrooms, and I looked down the hallway, and I said, Dad, I don't see any birds. And he looks at me like I am a complete idiot, and says, yes, but there could be. And he keeps, using the broom to violently scrape the sides of the ceiling, even though there are no birds in sight. So I just sighed and went into my rooms and turned up the Smiths. Dad also likes to make things up about what his parents used to do to justify new rules. For example, his father, Angelo Cacciatore, who some of you people knew, owned a bar at one point, and Dad decided maybe 5 or 6 years ago that we were going to have wet rags in the kitchen constantly because he remembers seeing wet rags in his father's bar. And these wet rags were non-absorbent, they were horrible, they smelled horrible, and he tried to use them on everything, which is why he's gone through multiple iPads. And I eventually, at some point, asked my Aunt Ginger, who had the same parents, did your parents actually have wet rags in their house? And she said, no, of course not, that's disgusting. Dad never met an Italian American that he did not like. And I believe a previous speaker said his blood type is ragu. I mean, based on his dietary habits, that probably isn't far off from the truth. But Dad loves this small community here in Los Angeles. And part of the reason I stayed in LA is because of my dad and how much he loves LA. Before Jonathan Gold was Jonathan Gold, Dad was taking me and the whole family to tiny restaurants and strip malls so that we could try the multiple types of cuisine that exists in LA, whether it's Italian or not, or Japanese or Chinese or Vietnamese. Dad has always been very adventurous that way, and he's always tried to explore the city through food. However, if you are a friend in need, no matter what your background, then you may as well be an Italian American indeed. Dad has an innate sense of fairness and justice that extends to everyone, clients and other attorneys. And I'm very proud of him for that type of generosity, even though he still manages to insult the shit out of nearly everyone. Dad is not an insular person who limits himself to being around people who are just like him. He is friends with conservatives and liberals, and it says a lot about my father that his first independent law practice, set up in the 1970s, was not with, other Itals from the community, but with a Jewish lawyer and an African-American lawyer. Because Tom Cacciatore does not care what you think. I mean, I'm not sure those two lawyers still talk to him. I mean, maybe Barrett does. And despite the crazy and irrational things he says, Dad is actually very open-minded. This year, I had to be late to his birthday dinner because it was the same day as the LA Pride Parade. So I called him up and told him I would be late because the city attorney's office usually gets a group together for the parade. And I go and show my support. To which he said, "Great, sounds like a party. Can I go? I'll get my dress." And I was like, "Dad, that's not quite, okay, maybe that was right." So as I said before, there's a little Tom Cacciatore in all of us. The ego and the id-driven maniac who says what he wants regardless of the consequences, and an equal opportunity pain in the ass to all, and the person who just makes shit up when he wants a new set of rules. Well, Dad is all of these things, but Tom Cacciatore is also a great father, who, because of what in some circles would be called a personality disorder, has somehow managed to raise a fearless and self-confident daughter who almost pathologically does not care what anyone thinks about her makeup, or what you think about her when she comes after you in court. So I'm just going to tell a short story about my life as a city prosecutor. One of the things about Dad is that he can talk to anybody. He can talk to anyone from the busboys to a federal judge, and he can do so respectfully and on a very relatable and human level, and that's something that I've learned from him and has served me well as someone who has to deal with often very poor communities and people who are very disadvantaged and underrepresented. So when I first started in my job as a prosecutor for the city of Los Angeles, I spent a lot of time interviewing victims, and I remember talking to this one victim, and she was concerned about the outcome of a crime and whether she would lose custody of her child. And we're just talking, and she was like, "Yeah, I don't want to lose custody of my kid. Like, he's my homie. He's been with me since day one." And I'm like, wait, what? We're talking about your child, right? And she's like, "Yeah, I've been with that fool since day one." Well, when it comes to Tom Cacciatore, I've been with that fool since day one. And he is my homie.
Alexandra, you can drop the F-bomb, but don't talk about men losing their hair. There are some things and I am quite happy that when you talked about Tom taking the strip malls, you didn't go into detail about the strip malls.
Different kinds of strip malls.
Oh, yeah, Tom. So, Larry Freeman. Larry and Tom were fast friends in high school. In 1967, they decided to go backpacking throughout Europe on like that $5 a day. And I saw pictures of Larry and Tom back in 1967. I said, "Larry, why did you choose to have Tom be your backpacking mate through Europe? I mean, he had to be a drag." And Larry said it was an easy decision. When you go backpacking, somebody has to carry the packs. Larry?
I'm going to go forward a little bit, and Tom will find it very difficult to keep quiet throughout this part of it. But we were either in, I don't remember if it was Florence or if it was, he's already doing it. He's making the motion. We were either in Florence or in Rome, and we had not showered or bathed in a while because it wasn't easy to do that. We passed a really nice looking hotel, and we thought said to each other, if we can get past the front people, we can get to the men's room in this place, and it's got to have something better than what we're used to, because we had been staying in pensions, etc. Let's see what we can do. So we did get past the front people, and we walked into the men's room, and the men's room was relatively empty, as I recall. And there was in the center of the men's room a large tile, marble, circular thing with a device in the middle, a fountain, and water was coming out and spraying out. And I'm watching, and the next thing I notice is Tom has put down his backpack, and he's loosened whatever there was of his shirt, and he's taking the water from the fountain, and he's bathing in this. Now Tom says this is all BS, never happened, it's completely untrue, but it really did happen. And then a short while later, a couple of Italian guys came into the men's room, and they looked at Tom, and I was still trying to figure out what this was. And the next thing I know is they've unzipped and they're peeing into this brown, marble, beautiful tile device in the middle. And I'm thinking, I don't think this was quite what Tom had in mind. Yeah. Don't give me that.
Tom will be there next with the golden shower. I'm gonna explain.
Yeah, okay. Now, I've told this story a number of times, not only to other people, to my children, and Tom then met my children when they were a little older, and he mentioned what his name was, and they said, "Oh, you're the guy who showered in the urinal in the bathroom in Rome or in Florence." And then Tom pointed out something which I did have some difficulty answering.
Thank you very much.
You're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. He said, "What do you think that all these Italian guys came into this thing, and they would unzip, and then they would be in a round, in a circle, and they would expose themselves to each other because they were peeing?" And I thought about it, and at first I thought, well, he had made a good point. Then I thought, no, actually they would. This is something that they probably would do. And Tom, I want you to know that one of the things that has kept us together through some thick and thin, your sense of humor and mine match very well. And it's a wonderful thing when you call me or I call you, and over absolutely nothing, we get into a laughing thing where it actually hurts. It hurts to laugh that hard. And it's a great thing in your life. When you get off the phone, you feel so much relief and you feel great, and it's appreciated, and you're a wonderful guy, and it did happen the way I was going.
I know you know that at every roast, you've been waiting for this. The politicians, the dignitaries come in with the certificates, with the accolades and all of that. They must be stuck in traffic. Judge Chris Frisco. the Honorable Judge Briscoe, past president of this association. More importantly, he is the son of Judge Charlie Frisco. I was surprised when Tom was bragging that he had 2 Friscos, 2 judges, as his friends. So I asked Chris, I said, why would you and your dad, 2 distinguished judges, befriend a guy like Tom Cacciatore? And Chris, as he would do, he put his arm around me and he says, Giacomo, we're Sicilian. We have low self-esteem. And it's difficult to find someone you can look down on. That's where Tom Cacciatore comes in. So,
before I begin, I want to ask that all of you give a very loud applause to the one person that deserves it more than anyone else, and that's Lynn Cacciatore. Bravo. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure and honor to be here tonight. I asked Tom for his CV so I could speak about his history. He sent me his genealogy instead. Thomas Peter Cacciatore is a proud Sicilian American. His grandfather Gaetano was born in Santo Stefano Kiskina in Sicily. And as my father used to say, Santo Stefano Kiskino is not at the end of the world, but you can certainly see it from there. In Santo Stefano, the most common name is Cacciatore. It is, as Tom... anyone know the difference between Tom and God? God doesn't think he's Tom Cacciatore. In my research of your genealogy, I discovered that in reality your family tree is a cactus. Maybe because everyone on it is a prick. Is this being recorded? I hope not. In the little town of Santo Stefano, no crime has been committed or has been solved. Actually, no crime has been solved in the last 50 years. Does anybody know why?
Mafia.
Mafia? No, because everybody in that little village has the same DNA. Think about that for a second. Tom attended Pasadena City College, but graduated from the University of Los Angeles, and ultimately from Loyola Law School in 1971. Many of you don't know this, but Tom graduated with a perfect 4.0. That wasn't his GPA, but his blood alcohol level. People's Exhibit number 1. Look at that face. You see that beef red face? This guy is juiced. You can tell by looking at him. After law school, he worked on the failed campaign of another Italian prima donna with a very big ego, the late Vincent Bugliosi. And there he met Lynn Beckett, who worked for the winner, Joe Bush. And finally, at 35 years of age, Tom moved out of his parents' house to marry Lynn. And Lynn once confided in me that she has not spoken to Tom in years. She doesn't want to interrupt him. Tom went on to become a very successful plaintiff's attorney, handling thousands of cases. One in particular was Bigby versus Pacific Telephone, am I right? Which he argued before the California Supreme Court. He won a verdict of $10 million. Now I asked Tom, what did you do with the $10 million? Nope. Tom just looked down and said, well, part of it I spent on gambling, part of it I spent on booze, and part of it I spent on women. The rest I spent foolishly. No, really, Tom, you have it all except love, friends, good parents, success, and looks. You know, if I had a face like yours, I'd sue my parents. People's Exhibit 2. Hey, Tom, what do lawyers and a single sperm have in common?
What?
They both have about a 1 in 3 million chance of becoming a human being. Many of you know Tom's politics. Tom is a left-wing progressive liberal. Dr. Ernie D'Angelo once did an MRI on Tom's brain, and he explained Tom's liberalism thusly. In the left side, there's nothing right. In the right side, there's nothing left. Teddy Roosevelt had you in mind when he said, if you want to anger a conservative, lie to him. If you want to anger a liberal, tell him the truth. Hey Tom, what's the difference between a liberal and a puppy? The puppy stops whining when it grows up. Like all good liberal attorneys, Tom believes firmly in the Constitution, especially the anti-establishment clause of the First Amendment. Tom adamantly opposes the posting of the Ten Commandments at any courthouse. Or as Tom explains, you cannot post, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery, or thou shalt not lie. In a building full of lawyers, judges, and politicians, it would create a hostile work environment. All right, all kidding aside, Tom is a kind, generous, and as Roger said, above all, charitable. He's been very active with many charities, but in particular, Tom has been very active with the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And I think you all know it. It's where they make sick kids, or sick children with cancer, meet Tom. And after spending a day with him, dying isn't so terrible. I asked Tom tonight for a quote about tonight's roast, and Tom said, quote, I've tried to know absolutely nothing about a great many things, and I believe I have succeeded rather well. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I'd ask you to join me now to give a very loud round of applause to a wonderful human being, a great man, a man I love and respect and spent many years with. And I'm always trying to sit at his table because I know what a great honor it is, and I'm very, very honored to be his friend. Thank you, Tom.
So I know you would say to Judge Frisco, I'm sorry I forgot to wear my hat that says, make Sicily great once. People make fun of Tom's lack of education, but actually before he went to law school, he did get a degree, a BS at MSU, making shit up again. I don't know why we did this. Not we, I had nothing to do with it, but the last two speakers are going to do like a duo. I have no idea why. We have Bob Norton. Tom tells me that Bob Norton is a fine Irishman. And when he uses the word fine to describe Bob, I can understand why Bob has never graced us for the Gaelic and garlic dinner here, because fine Irishmen would not do that. Tom, having no loyalty to the Italian American Lawyers Association, could care less. Tom went on about how great of a comedian Bob is. So I asked Bob about that, and Bob told me that Tom laughs at all of his jokes. Unfortunately, Bob added, Tom doesn't understand the jokes, but he continues to laugh. Also with Tom is Hank. And Hank, you've got to spell your name differently. Premov. P-R-O-M-A-O-V. Premov.
And I actually met him for the first time at an Italian American Lawyers Association dinner, function just like this. So, what can you say about Tom Cacciatore? Well, most of it's already been said. He is a fine man. He is a good husband. He is a good father. He is a great lawyer. And I know this because he told me just before the meeting. He's been practicing for 46 years. He's got a passion for it. He has after his family, he basically has two great passions in his life. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that better? Yes. He has two passions in his life: the law and cars. He loves his cars, and he loves the law. And he's finally worked out how to meld these two passions together. He bought himself his own ambulance.
Thank you.
But he's had it specially fixed up. He took it to Czech Paris, set it up so that when you open the back door, there's an automatic business card dispenser. He loves everything Italian, as you know. He speaks Italian, but he's a little shy about speaking in public because he's embarrassed by his speech impediment. One arm shorter than the other. He also knows how to sign in Italian. And he taught me. And I can teach you tonight. We'll go through the alphabet first. A, B, C. But Tom is really a good man. And, I love him to death. And I'm very happy that I am considered a friend of his. He is a friend of mine. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the other half of our group.
I'm Hank, you're Hank and Bob, not Bob and Hank. Anyway, congratulations to Tom on his fine roast tonight. It's really kind of nice. Everybody here to honor Tom. Looking around, he's really quite the big shot. Big shot Tom, big lawyer, big Italian. Everybody all dressed up tonight, which is nice. Everybody got nice clothes on, ties and everything. I don't wear a tie, okay? I never wear a tie. If I wear a tie, I charge an extra $50 an hour, and that cheap bastard wouldn't pay me the $200. Okay. All right, so like everybody else here, this is, Bob and I are Irish. Believe it or not, with a name like Premov, I'm really half Irish. My mother's 100% Irish, and so love the Irish, love the Italians, everybody, all these Catholics living together in the same neighborhood. It's wonderful. Anyway, so I tried to learn a few phrases in Italian. Okay, so I learned these. Okay, that's Italian, right? Another one. And my favorite. Anyway, that's all the Italian I know, and I'm sorry. I'm sure I did that with a terrible accent. Anyway, all right. So today, coming here, when asked to speak tonight, Tom told me that he sent me that same email that he sent everybody else, but he told me in particular that I couldn't be rude or crude. All right. So I took that to heart. He told me no F-bombs. Not going to happen. Okay. That's for you, Tom. All right. Then my wife told me, she said, I couldn't say anything offensive. I'm not allowed to say anything that's politically incorrect. I'm not allowed to say anything that's ethnic or religious. Okay? So what do you say when you're speaking to a bunch of Italian lawyers with those kind of restrictions? I don't know. Anyway, but I also got an email from Tom that threatened me. Okay, he said to me, this is true. He actually sent me an email. I swear this is an email that he sent me. The others probably got it as well, but they just didn't mention it. He said that he did not want a colonoscopy tonight. So we won't do that. Okay, all right. He said he was a sensitive guy and that I had to behave myself. But what really got me was he said he went window shopping at Turner's. Okay, and if you know what that is, there's, you know, gun shop, you know, that kind of stuff. And so he said I can only say nice things about him. So I'm going to sit down now.
Like him, I'm also an Irishman, and I just wanted to make one point. You know, we make fun of the Irish, make fun of the Italians, we think that they don't get together. Actually, there's very little difference between the Irish and the Italians. 1 year of high school. I'm done. Are you done? I'm done.
I'm done. All right. All right. I'm the closer? All right. Anyway, like everyone else has mentioned tonight, Tom has told us all what a great PI lawyer he is. Okay? I know. You know, you can just ask him, he'll tell you that's the case. Okay? But I've actually known Tom for more than 25 years. As somebody mentioned, I think Tom told Jack that I met Tom 25 years ago when our kids were in school. I showed up at his house one night to pick up my son, my wife and I. He was over there, you know, having a play date with Andrew when they were little kids or something. And I walked in and Tom had all his fishing stuff laid out. He was getting ready to go on a fishing trip. And I love to fish. And so I said, wow, that's really great. Where are you going? He said, oh, we're going to Alaska for 10 days. And he said, you want to go? And I said, oh, I couldn't. I mean, this is Sunday. And they're leaving, I think, the next Friday. And I said I couldn't possibly do that. I'd have to clear my schedule and everything. I went with it for 10 days and went fishing in Alaska. It was really great. So I went on 2 fantastic fishing trips with Tom. That went to Alaska, and then we went on another trip to Cabo. I'm not allowed to say anything about that because there was a whole lot of alcohol involved. And Tom said I couldn't talk about it. But I went on 2 of the, all I know, there was 2 of the best fishing trips of my life. It would have been the best fishing trips of my life, except for one thing. Tom was there. Ooh, okay. Actually, he was a lot of fun to be with. I'm going to skip a couple of these things because it's getting late tonight, but I do have a couple stories I want to tell about Tom and his family, and Lynn especially, okay? As everybody knows, he's been married to his wonderful wife, Lynn, for a long, long time. And I got to tell you, I never understood why. I don't have a clue why, okay? All right? I understand that every man marries up, okay? But this is really ridiculous, okay? This is ridiculous, okay? Most people marry within their range, you know? If you're an 8, you know, you usually marry a 7 or something. If you're a 9, maybe you marry an 8, or if you're a 10, you marry 2 5s. I don't know. Anyway, Tom. Well, this one just surprised me because here we are. What do we got? We got about a 10 and a 2. Okay, and I want you to figure out where the 2 comes from. Okay, all right. Tom will tell you, and he has many times, tell you that back in the day, well, he was a 10 also. You know, he was a 10. Okay. Well, on that scale, Lynn was clearly a 20. Okay. Let me see. Okay, where are we here? All right. So I finally kind of figured it out one night. Sue and I were over having dinner with them. We went out onto the back patio, and we're sitting around. We're having a couple of drinks and everything. And, you know, kind of a romantic night out there. The moon's out there in Santa Maria. All of a sudden, Lynn looked up and she said, I love you. I don't think I could live without you. And Tom said, is that you talking or the wine? And Lynn looked at him and said, that's me talking to the wine. Next one. I've known Tom, like I said, for 25 years. It was my great pleasure to know his mom, Angela. I've never met his dad, Angelo. But I know his whole family. I know his sister Ginger, and everything. But I don't know, a lot of you probably don't know this, but somebody mentioned earlier that Tom's dad had a bar, but he was also in the rag trade. He had a business downtown Los Angeles in the garment district. Okay. And this this may or may not be true, I'm not sure, but one day I gathered that Tom's uncle, Carmelo, he was working in the construction trade. And Carmelo wandered around, he was working, and he got into an industrial accident. And he cut off his hand. But he was a clever fellow, so he grabbed that hand, shoved it in a bucket of ice, wrapped a belt around his wrist, and went running off to the hospital. And he got to the hospital, and he said, "Doctor, you fix my hand?" And the doctor said, "Sure." And he said, "How much?" And he said, "Well, $10,000. And Carmelo said, "Oh no, I can't do $10,000. So he went off a little dejected, what he's going to do now. Wandered on, and he came to a veterinarian's office. And so he goes up to the vet, and he says, "Hey, doctor, you fixing my hand?" And he says, "Sure." And he says, "How much?" He says, $5,000. He says, "Oh no, that's too much." So he decided to go to his brother Angelo's store. You know, he's got this sewing machine, he's a tailor. So he goes there and he says, "What are you going to, can you fix my arm?" And he said, "Sure, how much?" He says, "For you, $25. So he says, "Oh, great." So, you know, he sewed his hand back on. About a week later, he's walking along and he sees the doctor and the vet are having lunch out on the sidewalk at a cafe. He walks up and says, "Hey, you, look at that. Huh? You see this in my hand? You want to charge $10,000? You want to charge $5,000? My brother, he does this for $25. Okay. One more, now we're going to talk a little politics. Tom and I may not be on the same wavelength when it comes to politics. We've had some interesting discussions, and I've wanted to punch him right in the mouth. And there's precedent for that, it's happened, okay? Anyway, so I want to tell us a little story about Tom. Tom, I know, was up in San Francisco one time at a CLE, and he was out wandering around, you know, lunchtime or something. He wandered into this curio shop, and he was looking around and he saw something he saw this really magnificent brass rat. It's beautiful, perfect, proportioned, everything. A brass rat. And he decides, you know, I think I'd really like to buy this. So he takes it up to the owner of the shop and he says, "How much for the brass rat?" And he says, $25 for the rat, but $100 for the story. And Tom says, "I don't want the damn story, give me the rat." So he takes the rat, gives him the $25, and he walks out. So he starts walking down the street, and all of a sudden, he hears this noise behind him. He looks back, and there's about 100 rats following him. It's kind of weird, and he starts to walk a little faster, and all of a sudden, he hears behind him, there's a real lot of squealing going. He looks back, there's hundreds of them. He starts to run faster and walk along. Next thing he knows, there's thousands of rats following him. He starts running as fast as he can. He runs down off of the pier at San Francisco Bay, throws the rat into the pier. And all of a sudden, all the rats dump into the water, and they all drown. So Tom walks back to the curio shop. And he walks in, and the guy says, "You're back for the story." And Tom says, No. Do you have a brass Republican?" Anyway, like everybody else, I've spent a lot of time with Tom. I don't know why, but I love the guy. You know, he's a pain in the ass. We don't agree at all politically, but we get into these great screaming matches and fights. And I have such fun with him. He really is a kick. And so, as you all know, great guy. And so, thank you, Tom. Thank you for having me.
Nothing about Sicilians here, Judge. Tom, look around. Tom, look around. How many people are here that stayed? You can thank Janelle because she hasn't done the raffle price yet. No, I can't talk right now. I'm on the phone, okay? Hey, I'm on the phone. This is a roast for, Tom Cacciatore. Oh, really? believe it or not, this son of a bitch, when I got to the Italian Hall of Fame, I made the mistake of having him introduce me. He gets a phone call from that young lady over there, and he stops his introduction, and for 15, 20, 30 seconds, he carries on a conversation, and I thought it was a gag, but it wasn't. So, Tom Cacciatore, whatever bad things they said about you were true, whatever good things they said about you were lies, I introduce the one and only Tommy Cacciatore.
Wait, guys, remember I said he was a narcissist?
Hey! Hold it up!
Oh, man, give me a photo of this. This is the, hold on now.
A sea of Tom Cacciatore's.
Hello, self-retired. Come on, man. You are weirdos.
Turn around, Tom. You get a picture of yourself while you
Turn it on!
And you guys are welcome to heckle him with these.
I want to see the ones with hair. Give me the ones with the hair, please. There was a time.
stand up.
There was a time.
Long ago and
Well,
far
you know, I
away.
didn't expect to say a whole lot tonight. Because I was expecting more flattery than I got. But hey, I'll take it. I have to say, Hank Dramoff just made those poignant remarks, and I was very touched, I have to tell you, Hank. I met Hank when our children were going to grade school together, and we were in Boy Scouts. Do you remember that, Henry?
I do.
We had a great time. The only strange thing was Hank was always suggesting at the Boy Scout outings that we should all roast our weenies and warm our buns over the fire. Well, a few of the fathers started talking. You may have read about it in the newspaper. Actually, Hank
wouldn't leave me alone.
Hank is a mergers and acquisition attorney and a corporate tax specialist. He taught, Sue, you know this, he taught at USC at the School of Taxation, corporate tax. So he's often referred to as a transactional, pardon me, I didn't say it, transactional lawyer. He is a fine lawyer. And Bob Norton, he's another one. Unbeknownst to most people, he and Hank worked in an aircraft factory. If you drank jet fuel, you could get high. Because every night after work, they would go to the local bar and have a drink, a few beers. But Bob read that if you drank jet fuel, it was better than whiskey or beer. It was wonderful. He said a person could get high as a kite, drink as much whiskey, drink as much jet fuel as you would want, and the next day you would have no hangover. It was a lot cheaper than all the other alcoholic beverages. And so the next day they decided to do it and try it. So the next day they went to the park. They went to the park near Hank's house. The South Pass, what's that park called?
Garfield Park.
Garfield Park. They went and sat on the park bench. They got a gallon of jet fuel. They got a couple of martini glasses, big ones, and they were drinking the jet fuel in the martini glasses. And they were getting high and having a lot of laughs and drinking and telling jokes, and it was all wonderful. He said at the end of the evening they went, and at the end of the evening they went home. But the next morning, Bob called Hank and said, "Hey, how are you feeling?" Hank said, "Well, actually, And Chet Phil was okay. I feel terrific. It was great. Bob said, but wait, did you fart yet? Hank said no. Bob said, well, whatever you do, don't do it. He said, I did, and I'm calling from Cucamonga. Larry Freeman, lawyer extraordinaire. I say that because Van Marie, she's French, you know, so I have to be a little bit king around to decide that there are plenty of guys who need to go to jail. She's still liberal, but there's plenty of guys that need to go to jail. She is really seeing the underbelly of society, and yet keeps her sunny disposition through it all. Well, sometimes. Alexander, I love you very much, and I thank you, in spite of what you said tonight. Chris Frisco, judge.
Recusal.
Peremptory challenge. Past president. Son of a pillar of the Italian-American community. The great Charlie Frisco. What a wonderful guy he was. Chris has been described as a model judge. So last night, I looked up the definition of model, and it was described as a small replica of the real thing. Well, keep up the good work, Chris.
Tom, save your breath for when you blow up your date later.
One of these photos here shows Phil Argento in my family's backyard at about age 10 or 11, holding a lemon, the Ponderosa lemon, if you recall. Phil and I have been friends since kindergarten, and we're still the best of friends. Phil was appointed by Jerry Brown at the end of his first 8-year term in the late 70s? 80s, pardon me. Phil had always been in the municipal bench about 6 weeks when a challenge came to the newly passed proposition called the Victims' Bill of Rights, which came before him as a misdemeanor case. The defense attorney challenged the constitutionality of that law. Most wise judges would have deferred making any ruling whatsoever and let the Court of Appeal, the boys upstairs, make that decision. But Phil was tough and courageous. He made the decision, ruling it unconstitutional after about 6 weeks on the bench. When he made that ruling, the very next day, the LA Times wrote a scathing article about Phil, describing Phil, but they never mentioned his name, describing him as a lower court functionary. A functionary. That's sort of like calling Donald Trump a learned intermediary. Not. Actually, as it turned out, Phil was right, and the Court of Appeal did sustain his ruling later. But at the time, there were people that wanted to lock him up. In fact, lock him up! Lock him up! Lock him up! Phil had, I have to say, one thing about Phil all his life, since I've known him since we were 5 years old, the one thing the guy had was courage. He had courage. Coraggio, they say in Italy. Coraggio. And you've got it, man. Galen. I was jumped out of his seat. He was a classmate at Loyola in 1971. Even after that time, he still thinks I know what I'm doing. Galen's a wordsmith. He truly is a scholar. Galen is a true scholar. He even professed to know what the word onomatopoeia means. He told me it means a urinary infection. Brilliant. I went for it. Thank you, Galen. Onomatopoeia. and Jack. Where are you, Jack? There you are. Hiding back there. I want to thank you for being... He's holding up one of those faces.
I know you are, but what am I?
I want to thank you for being the MC tonight. But there's something you want to know. You and I actually have something in common that you never knew. Something you didn't know anything about. You see, for the first few years, the last few years rather, I've been fooling around with your wife. Said, you didn't know any of this.
She said outside the improvement, she didn't know the difference.
She said, well, you didn't know this, but I've been fooling around with Mary. Said, but don't tell my wife, please. She'll get really mad. Jack, you know, when you're out of town, and you're trying all those big, fancy cases you try, and you go up to San Francisco, you lecture, and you go to Washington, and you do all those great trial lawyer events, I'm over at your house. It's wonderful. He says, I'm at your house. I'm at your house, and I'm having a great time. Mary and I would laugh, we'd drink, I'd jump in your pool, we'd have a great time. It was wonderful, Jack, I have to tell you. But, and you do have a nice house, by the way. By the way, you're out of scotch. And if you don't mind, would you please pick up some pretzels? Anyway, I'm making this confession now because I feel very badly about all of this. And I want you to know that it's really all my fault. This whole business with Mary, it's all my fault. I'm totally to blame. I couldn't help myself. It's my fault. I was the one who answered her advertisement in the Hollywood Free Press. And on that note, I know that's terrible. I want to thank all of you. I know all of you came from a long distance. I know with the fires, what with all the other trouble going on, I really want to thank you. This is a wonderful testament to me, and thank God you're doing it when I'm alive and not dead. So thank you for coming, and that is